Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to today's Lunch and Learn. Wishing you all a very, very happy Friday and looking forward to the weekend. My name is Grace. I am one of the program managers here at Enterprise Nation and absolutely delighted to be joined by the lovely Jill Wilson. Jill is one of our trusted Enterprise Nation advisors. She's the CEO of her own company, Buttered Host, and is here to tell you all about how you can build your website. So we've got a Q&A session lined up for this afternoon. I'll be posing Jill some of our questions, but do feel free to drop in your own questions for today's session on the chat function that you'll see on your GoToWebinar control panel, and drop them in whenever you feel is ready. So we will make sure we're keeping an eye on that chat function and reading your questions out live throughout today's session. If you have any questions at any time, do let us know. We will be leaving some Q&A at the end of today's session as well. But before we jump in and introduce you to our lovely guest speaker, just a few housekeeping rules. Not to worry if you're jumping in a little late. We will be recording today's session and we will be including it in a follow-up email at the end of the day as well, and providing you all some nice additional resources for that email as well to take away into the weekend. But without further ado, Jill, thank you so much for joining us today. I'd love for you actually to do the honours of a lovely introduction to our audience and tell everyone a bit more about yourself, if that's okay.
No problem. Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here. So I am Jill Wilson and I run an award-winning web agency in Glasgow called Buttered Host, as Grace said. And I started making websites back in the 1990s, which for some of you might even be before you were born. I've worked in commercial backgrounds, I've worked for Glasgow University, I've worked with clients from all types of industries, from counselling to pharmaceutical, and I deal with all sorts of websites, including e-commerce, learning environments, and sites designed to attract customers. My daughter and I started the business back in 2018, and we've just really enjoyed building the business and working on it. And so, just like you, I've been through the process of setting up a business and working out what it's all about and how it all works and doing my own website. So
That's wonderful and fantastic to see that you've already gone through this process and here to tell the tales and to share your experiences along the way. So again, thank you so much, Jill, for joining us. So we're going to jump straight into a few questions of my own, but again, just letting everyone on the line, if you have any questions throughout the session, don't be shy, pop them in and we'll be keeping an eye and we can read them out to Jill as well. So Jill, as we all can see by today's title, we're here to talk about how to start your own website. So what would you say, Jill, are the first key elements that we need to be considering when it comes to starting your website? And how does someone get started within the online world as well?
Okay, so the first thing to remember is that the online world is kind of a reflection of the real world. So in general, if things, systems, processes work well in the real world, then digitizing them will in general work well. If they don't work, they probably won't work online either. So when you're getting ready to get online, the first place you need to start is thinking about your real world target audience and the people you want to serve with your business. Who are your customers and why should they come to you? What differentiates you from your competitors? You know, in the last couple of years, there is so many people who have started up online businesses and they're trying to get attention of your potential customers. So you really need to be laser focused on these points, and it's just worth the time, taking time right from the start and actually keeping coming back to this as you go around. So even if you've already started this process, come back to it, because it can be really easy to get sidetracked by what other people advise you to do or want you to do or tell you is a great idea, you know, well-meaning relatives, and you know, but you've got to stick with your passion and your heart. I had a mentoring session with a couple of folk whose passion had been to sell high-end bespoke lighting products, And we were so lit up about that, you know, got to get that pun in there. What they did was they bought an existing domain name with an existing website on it, which was a generic shop, and it sold everything from, you know, baby toys to, you know, lawnmowers or whatever. And it looked exactly like every other drop shipping website out there. And 6 months on, and many thousands of pounds of advertising later, they hadn't made a single sale. When I asked them, they had no clue who their ideal customer was, and they'd gone way too wide in terms of their product range. So as we spoke, they started to share their original dream, and they realized that people had been saying to them, oh, you could also sell this, you could also sell that, and it just got out of hand. So they really needed to come back and think about their ideal customer, who are those people who want to invest and have bespoke high-end lighting in their homes and businesses. So they had to come back to their first love. So always keep coming back to that, and make sure you create some sort of avatar about your customer and how you think they'd like to be spoken to and communicated with. So are they quirky? Are they upmarket? Do they speak with a local dialect? Do they like to watch videos? Do they read things? Do they watch animations? And kind of what colour schemes do they like? For example, I've been working on a gaming site, and they wanted dark colour scheme because that's what their users love. That's the gaming world. They like these dark, atmospheric sort of websites. But if you're a luxury beauty product range, then you might choose light, bright, or pastel colours. What your audience want, and it's not what you want, it's what they want. Because remember, your website actually isn't for you; it's for your ideal customer. And if you don't know about these things, if you think, oh, I have no idea, I don't know what they like, well, now's the time to do that research. Go and ask some people that are like your ideal customer, or are your ideal customer. And it's okay to sort of start with your friends and family, so long as they're like your ideal customer, and ask them what they like and how they like, you know, all these preferences. You can also explore stuff like Facebook groups and just ask questions, set up little calls and LinkedIn groups and things like that. Ask questions, be curious about your audience, and take the time to do the research. I think that's where you need to start.
That's lovely. I think what you touched on about, Jill, that the website is for our audiences rather than ourselves. And sometimes we can get lost in the creativity of it and what looks good, what's in our favor. But actually, you're right, it's a place where our customers are coming to to buy a product which is resembling what their needs and preferences are. So that's lovely. We've actually had a comment come in already from Katie, who I'm just going to read it out as it's quite relevant to what we're discussing at the moment. Katie saying, I have a website for photography. She has been selling some, but she does not advertise. I don't think she's quite got the hang of it, but she's often told her photography is top drawer. So that's really lovely to hear, and thank you for sharing, Katie. Jill, I'm not sure if you have any comments to respond back to Katie on that.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, even though your niche is photography, that's a wide range, isn't it? So who are your photographs directed at? Are they high end? You know, if people are saying top drawer, are you aiming at high end luxury clients that want really special photos, and do they want like large prints that are dramatic, or are you looking at card size, postcard size, and you want to sell volume? You've got to really think about that, and then that's where you tailor your website at. So if you're looking at a high end, rather exclusive buyer for your photographs, then you probably want to create that mood in your website. You want to generate interest, and you know, you might even not put prices on if that's the kind of thing you're after. But if you're actually you're going to allow people to buy, you know, postcards and all sorts of different sizes of prints, which is a really other great way to go with photography, then, you know, you can set up a shop, and you can just make it really accessible to a market that might want to buy quickly and receive quickly, offer them various options like frames, non-frames, you know. So there's, again, it just comes back to that understanding who you're trying to reach. And it's very tempting in the beginning to say everybody, but you can understand that if you're speaking to somebody who is looking for a luxury product, you're going to speak to them quite differently to somebody who's just walked in and wants a 30p postcard. You're going to give them a different amount of attention. You will speak to them differently, and that's what your website should reflect. Hope that makes sense.
That's lovely advice. Thank you so much, Jill. I think that leads me quite nicely into my next question. And I know we've discussed on how we can bring our physical products or services to the online world, and making sure that we're covering those key aspects to, you know, keep an audience and obviously drive those sales. But what would you say is the first things that we should be thinking about when it comes to actually setting up a website? Are there any specific online platforms that you'd recommend? Do we have to have things in place before we get a website up and live? We'd love to pick your brain about those sort of things.
Yep, absolutely. So even we're still not even at technology yet. So I would say that even once you've got all that stuff about your ideal customer, I would start to build a mood board of some kind. So whether that's a physical one, or maybe use Pinterest or something like that, start to look around online and in magazines and posters and things like that, and, you know, just take photos of things with your mobile phone, and collect things that you think would really appeal to your ideal customer, and start to build the sort of picture of where your website is going to actually go in terms of design and look and feel. And so it could be that you're taking photos of, you know, nature or something like that, because you have natural products, and you think and looking at other competitors' sites as well. It's really important to check out what they're doing, not so you can copy them, but so you can do it better, obviously, and bring your unique perspective into your website. And also thinking again back about those, what are the little touches you want to do. So if you have a pet business, for example, do you want little paws in little design elements, things like that, things that are going to stand out to you? These are the sort of things that you want to start collecting. And you need to think as well about what your website is going to achieve for you. And you really need to have that as a plan. Maybe your website's just about credibility and you're not selling online, and actually it's just because we all know that if somebody says, oh, that person does such and such, the first thing we do is we go and check them out online, isn't it? And there are stats on that, like something like 89% of people check you out online before they'll use your service. And actually, if they don't like what they see there, they'll go to your competitors. So if your website isn't good enough, then that's the face of you. So for credibility, it's really important. You also need to think about, if you're selling or running a membership or something, you need to think about what those customers that you already have, and try to gather in some testimonies, some case studies, things like that. So this is your proof, your social proof that you're gathering, because nowadays we're sick of all this slick stuff, aren't we? We want to know people are really real and they can do the job. And in order to do that, you want to have proof from other people. And if you don't have that, if you're just starting out, what you can do is you can offer your service or your product at a reduced price for somebody, and ask them, on the understanding that they will give you reviews and testimonials, or let you use them as a case study if that's your business. And then think about the price and the number of leads you're going to need to make what you need to earn, if you like. So how many sales, if you're selling, do you need to make in a month? Is it 2? So how many leads do you need to gain to make that? If it's 200, how many leads do you need to take? And how many of those leads do you expect to come from your website? Because setting a website up for sales is quite different to setting a website up for just a brochure for somebody to come and look at. And again, with sales, there are marketing techniques in how you structure the page that might not be to your taste, but actually has proven to work in terms of generating more leads or sales. So it's really important to know what the purpose is. If the purpose is just to get them to phone you, that's fine. Then you need to set your website up to do that. If your purpose is just to be credible, then you set it up to do that. If it's about making a sale, you need to gather people, funnel them. I hate that word, but that's what they call it, to the point where they'll make a sale. And then you need to think about then, what will I do after that? How will I continue that relationship with that customer? How can I encourage them to use my products or services more? Because it's much easier to keep a client or a customer than it is to get a new one, as many of you will know. So thinking about what your website needs to do is probably the first thing. And then at that point, you're going to start thinking about the technology, because what you need it to do is going to inform where you're going to go with your technology. So I can just jump right into things like, so there are there are builder sites, and so there's so many ways to do a website. It's like, how many ways can you peel a banana? I don't know. So you can do it on your own, you can do it with somebody that's a professional, or you can have somebody else do it for you. And there's so many platforms. So they've got a lot of, so they kind of divide into builder platforms, where you can do them yourself, or you can still have somebody else help you with them, or you can have maybe standalone sites, and that tends to be the WordPress world these days. So in the builder camp, you've got people like Squarespace, Wix, GoDaddy 1&1, Shopify, things like that. And those, if you have a brochure site and you don't have any functionality and it's fairly straightforward, those sites can be a really good way to start. They can be quite inexpensive to start off with if it's a credibility you're using. Your site's going to look like everybody else's who's used the same template, but maybe that's okay, or maybe it's not. You have to think about that, and that's, again, it comes back to your target audience, who because if you're using a template site then and you're going after luxury customers, then that might not be a good fit. The other thing, there's some other things around builder sites that I personally don't like. I think they've got a great place, but I think when you start to grow in your business, or you have other needs, then you start hitting some of the, some limitations, or maybe not limitations, but certainly they'll cost you financially, but more the more you add on to them. And so you can end up starting to pay a bit more because you think, oh, I want it to do that. Oh, and very quickly your subscription's going up and up and up. Or what I've seen happen, I've had people complain to me that they had everything they wanted on a particular level, and then they rearranged all the plans, and one of the things they needed was moved to the next level up. So they had to keep it the same, they had to move up. So that's a bit annoying. The other thing about it is that sometimes you can, because they're volume pricing, there's lots and lots of websites on one server, which is a computer where websites live. And just like your laptop at home, eventually, if you keep putting stuff on it, they start to slow down a bit. And speed is one of the elements that Google looks for in terms of ranking you on the search engines, and that just means helping you be found by people who are searching for your services. And one final kind of con, if you like, about these, which is that you don't actually own your website, they own it. And if that company goes under, you have no recourse, your website's gone and that's it. And it's, you know, if you grow your business, then you think, right, actually I'm ready to move on to a different platform, you're effectively starting from scratch. You can copy and paste the text, and you can re-upload all the images, but you're doing it all again, you're redesigning. So they have their place and they're really good for certain things, but just be aware that, you know, when you're planning, these are some of the things that you could end up running into. So on the other side, you've got what most people, I think it's over 40% of the internet now, is run on WordPress, which is a very versatile platform that you can put on your own hosting. Hosting is when you rent some of that server computer space where your website lives. So every website must live on a server that's connected to the internet, and you have to pay for that one way or another. So even if you're with the builders, you're paying the builder company for that. When you have your own website, you're paying a company who will rent you some space. And WordPress can overcome most of the limitations that the builders have. You can make sure that they're nice and fast. You have a lot of control over them. You can make sure they're secure. But there's always going to be that outlay, and you also need to look after your website if you've got your own website. So you need to have some kind of maintenance consideration in an ongoing way for it. So you need to make sure that your firewall's in place, that you've got backups, that they work. You can actually restore your website should something happen to it, because, you know, unfortunately, bad people target small businesses' websites probably even more than big ones, because they're easier targets. So you need to be able to bring your site back and make sure it's particularly if you've got a shop. The last thing you want is to lose, somebody's paid you money and you don't know anything about their you know, because your site's crashed or anything. So you need that reliability. So you need to think about that and factor those kind of costs. And you need to do software updates and things like that, make sure everything's kept up to date. So those are the technical maintenance. And then the other side of it, which some of you might even do yourself, which is things like updating your text, keeping that fresh, and yeah, just bringing new pictures in as you have them. And I think, you know, once you have a website, the other thing is you want people to find it. So yeah, so you've got to have an eye on what we call search engine optimization, which is really making your website ready to be found when somebody types into Google a question, that you want your website to come up as the answer. And there's a whole language around that, like ranking, top of Google, all that kind of thing. We could spend a long time talking about that, but we won't. But it's definitely something that you need to invest in some way or another, whether it's definitely at the start of the journey when you're building your site. You need to make sure that it's built in a search engine optimized way, to give you the best chance of starting off. And maybe if it's a new website, completely new, you might want to think about a little bit of advertising just to push your traffic up to then boost your search engine optimization. But you've got to be very careful about that, because so many people waste a lot of money on advertising when they haven't done the basics. You know, and you might as well just be poor. You can get people to come to your site, but then they might not stay and they might not do what you want them to. So it's just wasted money. It's so you've got to, you know, ultimately you want to have customers, don't you? You don't just want people to visit the website and then go away. So you need to monitor your website and who's visiting it, and try and keep an eye on optimizing it over time to really hone it to find out what works. And I think when you're budgeting, it's hard to when you're starting out, but I think you do need to keep an eye out for, 2-3 years down the line. Think about what the world was like before 2020. We all use the internet quite differently, not quite different, but a bit differently, and we're much more sophisticated in our internet use now. We're sophisticated in our searching and things like that. And so you want to think in 2 years' time, I really need to review my website and maybe think about making some changes that reflect my business, me personally, my ideal customer at that point in time. So even at this point, start thinking ahead if you're going to do that. So sorry, I've just really talked for a very long time there.
Wonderful, just a jam-packed full of information and different steps along the way. So and Jill, you've covered all my questions, so no, that was wonderful. We've actually had a few questions come in whilst you were going through the different elements, and a few have come in actually that I'm going to read out more regarding the technology side of building a website. So Steve's on the line, and Steve's saying that he has a Wix website which he has stopped, but he does continue to pay for the domain name. And I think Steve's real concern is in the near future, how will he be able to transfer his domain name and payment to a website which is not Wix?
It's a really good question, Steve, and actually it's actually easier than if you were moving your whole website at this time. The good thing is you can actually transfer your domain name away from Wix. They make it a little bit hard to find, but in your control panel, if you do a little search for DNS is what you need to look for, and you will then, or you in their help maybe moving a domain away from Wix. That's one, and they will bury it a little bit, but just keep persevering and keep looking for that. And there is a little link that takes you to moving your domain away from Wix, and you need to decide where you're going to move it to, obviously, and then what you'll need to do is unlock it and then go to your new provider. So whoever that might be, that could be GoDaddy or Google Domains or whoever you choose. Then you go to your account in the new place, and then you can start doing the transfer from there. But the good news is you may have to pay a little bit, but it won't be very much. It'll be, maybe a tenner or something to get it transferred out. And once you've got it transferred out of Wix, you can point it to any where you're going to have your new website. So
that's really great to know that that's an easy process, and that's do so. So Steve, I really hope we've answered your question there, and he does say many thanks. So Steve, good luck with the new platform. Iona is on the line, and she's actually asking Jill for your personal preference of what best platform to create a website is, in your opinion.
Okay, so my personal preference, but you've got to remember that I'm a web developer. So mine would be WordPress, yeah. So because I have the skills, so WordPress, if you're trying to do it yourself, it's quite a learning curve. Now, the thing is, it's that thing in your business, isn't it, of balancing your time against your money. And if you've got loads of time and you're prepared to trawl through lots of YouTube videos and learn about it, then that's you can learn WordPress. What's a bit more difficult to learn are the design skills that are particularly pertinent to your ideal client. So if you're working with a professional, they will know all about, they'll be able to guide you in what's going to be the best look and feel, maybe if you don't know that already. But so it's about that. Do you want to spend the time? You can learn it yourself. You can do it yourself. It is achievable if you've got a little bit of technical knowledge and you're comfortable with that. Or you can get somebody to help you, and then you pay them and you sit back and order them around, and that's quite nice too. So there's a couple of things. So I really like WordPress. It's got a lot of versatility. There are many plugins which are peer reviewed and standardized. There are many themes that are peer reviewed and standardized. You can customize it. We have used WordPress to customize into applications that don't even look like a website. They look like an application. So you can build shops and anything you can imagine, more or less, you can do with using WordPress as a base. Now, whether it's not always the best way, but certainly it's very flexible. So I enjoy it. However, if you have £2.50 and you don't have any design experience, then maybe something like Wix is better for you for now. And you know, you just look again to that 2 years down the line. Okay, where am I going to be? I accept that I'm going to have a redesign in a different place when my business is more successful, and I've got and I'm going to start saving up now for that day. Or you can look at, there are other ways to do it. Some developers, like we offer a subscription service, which is it's very slightly more expensive than your Wix or Squarespace, but actually it's a WordPress site, and it's a bit like a lease to buy. So you kind of rent it for a number of months, and then at the end of that, it's your website, and you can take it anywhere, and it's a much better. And then you're paying month by month, but it's not just money down the drain. You get your website at the end, kind of thing. So there are people that will do that kind of thing, which is quite a good way to do it if cash flow is an issue. So hope that's answered your question.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much, Jill. Unfortunately, we have run out of time for today's Lunch and Learn. Jill, I think we might need to invite you back for round 2.
That was fast.
It was very fast, but definitely I think we've covered some great content here about what stages we need to do and put in place to creating that website. And thank you, Jill, for giving us your own personal preferences and giving us those top tips when starting out. But before we do come to an end of today's session, Jill, I was wondering if you could share with our attendees on the line, what would you say are the main things to consider over the weekend, a bit of homework when it comes to building your website? What would you say are the 3 key things to think about?
I would start thinking about the main pages you have on your website. Start thinking about what they should look like. And so I normally ask this as a question, but I'm just going to tell you what I think. So I think there are 5 absolute must pages in my book for you, and you need to think about what you could put on them. So your home page, you must have that. Your services or products page, you must have that. Your About You, that's quite nice as a page. You could put a little bit in that on the home page, but it's quite nice as a page in its own. The contact page, that is one of the most searched for pages, so you must have it as a separate page. The temptation is to bung it in with something else, but have it as a separate page. And your privacy policy, and get advice on that, so that because nowadays everybody is, and I haven't even talked about blogs, but blogs are also something that you really want to get into, and I'd love to talk more about that, but we've run out of time.
No, that's wonderful. I think, Jill, we will be inviting you back for a part 2 to cover, you know, even more. We could talk even more about blogs as well for websites. But a big thank you to you, Jill, for joining us today on this Friday session. And thank you to everyone. If you've tuned in live or if you're watching on demand, you can find out more about next week's Lunch and Learns. We'll be back from Monday for another full week. Make sure you have a look at our chat function. The lovely Carla backstage has added in a few links to see how you can connect with Jill and Enterprise Nation, and also find out a bit more about Jill's services as well. But wishing everyone a very happy Friday and a great weekend. We will be back on Monday. But Jill, any final words before we close off for today?
Just get out there and take the world by storm with your website. Go for it.
Amazing. Jill, thank you again so much, and everyone on the line. We will be sending out a follow-up email this afternoon for you to watch back and find out more about some goody additional resources as well. Brilliant. Well, Jill, take care. We'll speak soon, and we'll be back on Monday. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you. Cheers. Bye.